I'm back with part 2, and we were looking at the second word of the last 7 words that Christ used. I'm assured today that you will be with me in paradise. And I was saying the criminal had more faith. He had awe-inspiring faith. We ask Jesus to remember us. We all are sinners, and we all ask Jesus to remember us and remember us. But what criminal are we? We're all sinners, so what sinner are we? These 2 criminals on the cross. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Are not you the Christ, and save yourself and us? But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you're under the same sentence. We are punished justly, and we're getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. Jesus laid his life down for you and I. He laid his life down as easily as that, and then he took his life up again. And he is seated on the right-hand side of God, and Jesus is seated on the right-hand side of God. And what I'd ask you is 2 theories here. Do you want to be the criminal who'd hurled insults at Jesus? Or do you want to be the criminal, the sinner that rebuked the other sinner that was hurling insults at him? Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence. We need to be fearing God. We need to be God-fearing and awe-fearing God and stepping out in faith. And when we step out in faith, like the criminal had more faith, had awe-inspiring faith, and because he was faithfulness and stepped out in faith, then he was rewarded. And God promises us that if we have faithfulness and step out in faith, then God will reward us. Now, just as the religious soldiers that were mocking Jesus and mocked Jesus, but even one of the criminals, downward progression of mockery. We all are sinners, and depending on whether we hear the call of God. And we see the second word is also still about forgiveness. Forgiveness. But it's also about faithfulness. Forgiveness and faithfulness. Directed to the sinner. Just like the first word. And it shows the divinity of opening of heaven for the repentant sinner. The generosity and the forgiveness and the open heart and being faithful, which also leads also with the forgiveness of the first word. So we look at the third word. Dear woman, he is your son. John 19:26. So we go to the third word. Dear woman, he is your son. Or we can have it in another interpretation. Jesus said to his mother, woman, this is your son. Then he said to his disciples, this is your mother. Gospel of John 19:26-27. So we're all going to John. And when we go to John, John 19:26. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciples whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, dear woman, he is your son. 27. And to the disciple, he is your mother. From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. And we know that John was with Mary at the time at the foot of the cross. Jesus and Mary were together at the beginning of his ministry at Cana, and now at the end of his public ministry, and at the foot of the cross, as I was saying. Mary and John were at the foot of the cross. Mary is Jesus' mother. The sorrow from the mother's heart to see her only son mocked and tortured and crucified. And then again, a sword piercing Mary's soul, reminded the predictions of Simon at the temple, Luke 2:35. There are 4 at the foot of the cross: Mary, his mother, John, and the disciples whom he loved: Mary, Cleopas, his mother's sister, Mary Magdalene. He addressed the words of Mary and John, the only eyewitnesses of the gospel writer. But then Jesus raised occasion of concern for the one that he loved, the good son, that he, and Jesus was concerned about taking care of his mother. In fact, the passage offers the proof that Jesus was the only child of Mary, because he did have brothers or sisters. If he did have brothers or sisters, they would have abided her. But Jesus looks to John to care for her. So even in this time of trial, even in this time, until, if we look at John 19 and before, which is 30. So we look at John 19 and 30. Until this time, contemplated system, a sacrifice had atoned for sin. John 19, we're looking at 26. But John 19:25 to 27, even while dying on the cross, Jesus was concerned about his family. He instructed John to care for Mary and Jesus, his mother, and her family, and the precious gifts of God. We should value and care for them in all circumstances. Neither Christian nor work nor key or responsibility in any job or position excuse us from caring for our family. What can you do today to show your love to your family? Jesus realised the importance of family and the family of love, showing the love to your family. Even when Jesus was dying on the cross, he was more concerned about his family, and he knew the importance of family and love. So now we have forgiveness. So we can see we have forgiveness, faithfulness, and being faithful, and loving your family. So there's 3 key words that come out of this at the moment of the third word. Jesus said to his mother, "Woman, this is your son." We can see some key words coming out of this: forgiveness, faithfulness, being faithful, being Christ-like, and also about family, the family of God, to show your love to your family, the family of God, and also your biological family or your extended family, to show the love of Christ. So we can see where this is going to. And in verses 25 of John 19, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother and his mother's sister and Mary and his wife Clopas and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciples whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Dear woman, here's your son." And 27, and the disciples, here is your mother. And from that time on, the disciples took her into his home. The key word there is whom he loved. He loved his mother. He loved everybody. And it was about faithfulness and forgiveness. And love. So the 4th word, we see, my God, why have you forsaken me?" So we go to Mark 15. And Mark 15 is, my God, why have you abandoned me or forsaken me?" So Mark 15. Mark 15, my God, why have you abandoned me? The very early morning, the chief priest With the elders and the teachers of the law, the whole Sanhedrin reached the decision. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over Pilate. And aren't you going to answer? How many things are they accusing you of? But Jesus still made no reply, and the Pilate was amazed. So on the 9th hour, so Mark 15 verses 34. On the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? So I just want to go to this a little bit more, but I'm just looking at some notes here. This was the only expression of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew and Mark, but both Gospels relate that it was the 9th hour, after the 3 hours of darkness, that Jesus cried out to the 4th word. The 9th hour was 3 o'clock in Judah. After the 4th word, Mark related to a horrible sense of finality, and Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. So I'm just going to go on, and I was going to go to my notes here of the 4th word, which I find this interesting. That, O God, death give you. Now remember, Jesus did not speak English. So, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, O God, O lama death give you. Jesus, our language, Aramaic to John and Mary. So the language that Jesus on the cross used, as looking into the research, on the cross he used the Roman officials Greek, the Jewish people Aramaic, and to himself or God, Tamil. O God, lama give me death, grieving for death. He was on the cross and he was crying out, O God, lama death give you. So, Eloi, O God, Eloi, O God, lama, O lama. Sabach is death, and then tha is give, and nigh is you. Eloi, lama sabachthani. Remember, Jesus didn't speak English. So we can see that this has been corrected with English. O God, O lama, give me death. He was grieving as what we would do if we were dying. We'd be grieving for death. We'd want death to come. So just skipping across from, before we go into the 5th word, 1 is forgiveness, 2 is salvation and relationship, and 4 is the abandonment, which we're at now, and saying the final finding, his mother. Eloi, lama sabachthani. And we can see that in Matthew 27:44 and Mark 15:34. So that is just looking at that the languages that Jesus would have been using on the cross when he cried out. And when he was speaking to the Roman officials, he would have used Greek. To the Jewish people, Aramaic. And to himself or God, as the research says, it would have been Tamil. And obviously the Roman officials wouldn't really know what he was talking about. Or the Jewish people that didn't know Tamil and the other language that Jesus knew. So I'm just going to go further into this now. So we're looking at, back to the 4th word. My God, why have you abandoned me or forsaken me? So I want to go now to Psalms 22.